The mining ship Stellar Hope drifted through the darkness of space. 200 men and women worked inside its metal walls. They were simple people, miners. They had left Earth to find rare metals on distant asteroids. They had families waiting for them back home. They had dreams of returning with enough money to buy houses and start businesses. They never saw the attack coming. Commander Thexelar of the Vethrani hegemony watched from his warship as his weapons tore the human vessel apart. The explosion was beautiful. Orange and red flames bloomed in the black void before dying in the cold vacuum. Metal twisted and broke. Bodies floated among the wreckage. Thexelar was a tall creature. His scales were deep green, and his eyes were yellow like a snake. He had commanded Vethrani warships for 60 years. He had never lost a battle. He had never shown mercy. Primitive creatures, he said to his crew. They should have known better than to enter our space. The Vethrani hegemony had ruled 3 star systems for over 4,000 years. They were proud. They were powerful. They believed they were superior to all other species in the galaxy. And they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. Far away, on a space station orbiting Jupiter, Admiral Sarah Chen received the news. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served in the United Nations Space Command for 35 years. She had hoped humanity would never face a real war in space. That hope died with the 200 miners. "Show me everything," she said quietly. Her officers played the final transmission from the Stellar Hope. The captain's voice was calm even as alarms screamed around him. He described the Vethrani ships. He gave their position. He said goodbye to his wife and children. Then there was only static. Admiral Chen closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were hard as stone. "Get me the Security Council," she said. Now, the Galactic Concord was an alliance of 47 species. They had maintained peace among the stars for 12,000 years. Their representatives gathered in a great hall on a neutral station, discussing trade and treaties and the small matters of interstellar politics. Ambassador Crixnal of the Felrani people was a slender being with silver fur and large dark eyes. She had studied many species during her long career. She had never studied humans. They were new to space travel. They were considered unimportant. That was about to change. A message arrived from Earth. It was addressed to the Vethrani hegemony, but it was broadcast on all channels. Every species in the Concord received it. The message was short. To the Vethrani hegemony, "You have destroyed our ship. You have killed our people. We demand the return of their bodies. We demand the surrender of those responsible. You have 72 hours. There was no signature, no diplomatic language, no threats of what would happen if the demand was not met. Ambassador Crixnal felt a strange chill run through her body. She did not know why. The Vethrani High Council gathered in their great chamber on Vethra Prime. The room was built from black stone, and torches burned along the walls. The Vethrani loved old traditions. They saw themselves as warriors from an ancient and noble bloodline. High Counselor Vex Thanner read the human message aloud. When he finished, he began to laugh. The other counselors joined him. The sound of their laughter echoed off the stone walls. "These creatures are amusing," Vex Thanner said. "They have 40 ships. We have 800. Do they think we fear them? They are like insects making demands of a dragon," another counselor said. Commander Thexelar stood before them. He had been called back to explain his actions. He did not look worried. "I destroyed one ship carrying workers," he said. "They were in our territory. I was within my rights. These humans should be grateful I do not destroy more of them." The High Council agreed. They decided to broadcast the human message across the entire galaxy. They wanted everyone to see how foolish these newcomers were. They wanted to humiliate humanity. The broadcast went out to thousands of worlds. Billions of beings watched. Most of them laughed along with the Vethrani, but not all of them. On a small moon in the outer territories, an old warrior named Grathuk watched the broadcast. He was a Corvani, a species known for their skill in battle. He had fought in 3 wars during his long life. He had learned to recognize dangerous enemies. Something in the human message made his blood run cold. They did not threaten, he whispered to himself. They did not explain what they would do. They simply told the Vethrani what they expected. His young apprentice looked at him. "Is that strange, Master?" Grathuk nodded slowly. "When the weak make demands, they make threats. They try to sound frightening. They want their enemy to imagine terrible things." He paused. "These humans did not do that. They spoke as if the outcome was already decided, as if they already knew exactly what they would do. What does that mean? The old warrior stared at the screen. The human message played again. It means, he said quietly, that the Vethrani have woken something they do not understand. On Earth, the 72 hours began to count down. In military bases around the world, soldiers prepared for war. Factories that had been sleeping roared to life. Engineers worked without rest. And in a quiet room in Geneva, 12 soldiers received their orders. They were called Reapers. They were the most dangerous human beings alive. Each of them had killed more enemies than they could count. Each of them had volunteered for missions that no one expected them to survive. Their leader was a woman named Major Diana Okonkwo. She had dark skin, short hair, and eyes that seemed to look through people instead of at them. She read the mission file in silence. "Vethra Prime," she said. "The enemy capital. Command wants us to send a message," said one of her soldiers. Major Okonkwo smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Oh, we will send a message," she said. "We will write it in blood." The clock continued to tick. 72 hours. 60. 48. The Vethrani celebrated their victory over the human miners. They drank and feasted and told stories about how easily they would crush these pathetic newcomers. They did not know that their deaths were already flying toward them through the darkness of space. The galaxy had seen many wars. It had seen empires rise and fall. It had seen terrible weapons and great battles. But it had never seen anything like what was coming. Humanity was about to teach the universe a lesson it would never forget. The 72 hours ended at midnight, Earth time. At 1 minute past midnight, the main military command station of the Vethrani hegemony went dark. Every screen, every communication channel, every light, all of it died at once. Admiral Kexroth was the highest-ranking military officer in the Vethrani Empire. He was in his private quarters when the power failed. He reached for his weapon in the darkness. He never found it. Something moved in the shadows. Something fast. Something silent. Before the admiral could even cry out, a blade found his throat. Across the station, the same scene repeated itself. Generals died in their beds. Admirals died at their desks. Strategic planners died in their meeting rooms. 12 humans moved through the darkness like ghosts. They killed without noise. They killed without mercy. They killed every single military leader they could find. By morning, the Vethrani military had no head. Its brain had been cut out in a single night. Major Diana Okonkwo stood in the admiral's quarters as her team finished their work. Blood covered her hands and face. She felt nothing. She had stopped feeling anything years ago. "Is it done?" she asked through her radio. "Done," came the replies, one after another. 12 soldiers, 47 targets. Not a single alarm raised. They left the same way they came. Like shadows, like nightmares. When the Vethrani discovered what had happened, their screams could be heard across the capital city. High Counselor Vex Thanner stared at the reports. His hands were shaking. This was impossible. The station had thousands of guards, the most advanced security systems in the galaxy. No one could break in, but someone had. "How?" he whispered. "How did they do this?" No one could answer him. Far away, in the halls of the Galactic Concord, Ambassador Crixnall watched the news with growing horror. She had dismissed the humans as unimportant. She had been wrong. Now she needed to understand them. She went to the Great Archive, a library that contained information about every known species. She searched for humanity. What she found kept her awake for 3 nights. Humans came from a planet called Earth. It was a Class 12 death world. The surface was covered with volcanoes, earthquakes, storms, and extreme temperatures. The oceans were filled with creatures that could swallow ships. The land was filled with predators that could kill with a single bite, and humans had conquered all of it. But that was not the worst part. Crixnall read about human history. She learned that humans had been fighting each other since before they could write. They had invented thousands of ways to kill. Swords, spears, guns, bombs, poison, fire. They had killed each other by the millions. The numbers made her feel sick. In 12,000 years of galactic civilization, the Concord had fought 11 wars. 11. Most species saw war as a terrible failure, a last resort, something to be avoided at all costs. Humans had fought over 15,000 wars in their recorded history. 15,000. And that number did not include the smaller conflicts, the rebellions, the civil wars, the secret operations. Crixnall read about something called World War II. In just 6 years, over 70 million humans had died. 70 million. That was more than the total population of many conquered species. And humans had kept fighting. They had developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash. They called them nuclear bombs. And then, impossibly, they had used these weapons on themselves. Twice. Any other species would have stopped. Any other species would have looked at such horror and decided that war was not worth the cost. But humans had looked at the horror and asked themselves how they could make the weapons even more powerful. Crixnall kept reading. She learned about something humans called persistence hunting. Long ago, before they had weapons, humans had hunted their food in a terrifying way. They did not chase their prey fast. They chased it slow. They followed it for hours, days. They never stopped. They never gave up. Other creatures would run and hide and think they were safe. But then the humans would appear again, always following, never tiring. They would chase their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would kill it. The humans had not forgotten this. Deep inside their minds, they were still persistence hunters. They did not fight wars to win single battles. They fought wars to break their enemies completely. They would chase their prey across the galaxy if they had to. Crixnall closed the files. Her silver fur had turned pale. Her hands were shaking. She understood now. The Vethrani had not started a war with a young and weak species. They had poked a sleeping predator. A predator that had spent its entire existence learning how to kill. The Vethrani High Council did not understand this. They saw the attack on their command station as an insult, a lucky strike that would not be repeated. They called for their fleet to gather. 800 warships. The largest military force the hegemony had assembled in centuries. They would go to the human colony at Kepler and burn it to ash. They would find Earth and reduce it to rubble. They would show the galaxy what happened to insects who dared to challenge the Vethrani. Commander Thexalar was given command of the fleet. He stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. This would be easy. 40 human ships against 800. The math was simple, but Thexalar did not understand human math. He did not know that humans measured victory differently. They did not count ships. They counted will. They counted determination. They counted the fire in their hearts and the hate in their eyes. And right now, every human being in the galaxy was burning with hate. Crixnall watched the Vethrani fleet depart. She had tried to warn them. She had shown them her research. She had begged them to seek peace before it was too late. They had laughed at her. "You worry too much," Vexthanar had said. "We are the Vethrani. We have never lost a war. You have never fought humans." Crixnall had replied. They had not listened. Now the ambassador began making quiet arrangements. She contacted her government. She told them to prepare for refugees. She told them to stay far away from Vethrani space. And she began evacuating her embassy staff. Her assistant asked her why. Crixnall looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the human fleet was waiting. Somewhere out there, human factories were building new weapons. Somewhere out there, human soldiers were sharpening their knives. "Because," she said softly, "I have seen what humans do to their enemies. I have read their history. I have seen the pictures of their wars." She paused. Her voice was barely a whisper. "The Vethrani think they are predators. They think they are the hunters. But they are wrong. They are the prey now. And the humans are coming for them." Her assistant was silent. "They called humans primitive," Crixnall continued. "They called them insects. They killed 200 miners and expected no consequences." She closed her eyes. "Congratulations, Vethrani. You just started a war with the deadliest creatures the galaxy has ever known. And may the stars have mercy on you. Because the humans will not." The fleet of 800 ships flew toward Kepler. They did not know they were flying into a nightmare. Commander Thexalar brought his fleet of 800 warships to the Kepler system. He expected to find human colonies. He expected to find human ships trying to defend them. He expected a battle. He found nothing. The colony on Kepler 442b was empty. Every human had been evacuated. The buildings stood silent. The streets were bare. Even the animals had been taken away. "Where are they?" Thexalar demanded. "Where did they go?" His sensors showed nothing. No ships, no life signs, nothing except empty buildings and cold wind. Then the first mine exploded. It was hidden in an asteroid field near the planet. When a Vethrani scout ship flew too close, the mine detected its engines and flew toward it. The explosion destroyed the scout instantly. Before the Vethrani could react, more mines activated. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They came from asteroids. They came from debris. They came from places that looked completely empty. 12 ships died in the first hour. Thexalar ordered his fleet to pull back. They needed to clear the mines before they could advance. He sent specialized ships to do the job. Those ships found the drones. Human drones were small and fast. They hid in the shadows of asteroids. They waited until Vethrani ships were busy with the mines. Then they attacked. They fired missiles and ran away. They exploded themselves against enemy hulls. They jammed communications and sensors, and they never stopped. Day after day, the Vethrani fleet tried to push forward. Day after day, they lost ships, not in great battles, but in small attacks. A destroyer here, a frigate there, death by 1,000 cuts. Thexalar grew frustrated. He ordered his ships to hunt down the drones, but the drones were controlled remotely. They were not afraid to die. They had no crews to tire. The Vethrani crews, however, were getting very tired. Vethrani physiology required 16 hours of sleep every cycle. Their bodies were built for short bursts of activity followed by long rest. They could not stay alert for extended periods. Humans needed only 6 hours of sleep, and they had trained themselves to work on even less. The attacks never stopped. They came at all hours. Just when the Vethrani thought they could rest, another explosion would rock their ships. Another alarm would scream through the corridors. The Vethrani could not sleep. They could not eat. They could not think clearly. And still the attacks continued. Far from the front lines, something else was happening. Human ships, disguised as civilian traders, began appearing near Vethrani merchant convoys. They called themselves privateers. Officially, they had no connection to the human military. Unofficially, everyone knew the truth. These privateers attacked Vethrani supply ships. They stole cargo. They destroyed what they could not steal. They vanished before military ships could respond. The Vethrani economy began to bleed. Food shipments stopped arriving at Vethrani colonies. Industrial materials disappeared. Prices rose. People began to panic. The High Council sent messages to their commanders. They demanded victory. They demanded the humans be crushed immediately. But Commander Thexalar could not give them victory. Every day, his fleet grew weaker. Every day, he lost more ships. And the humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. In the halls of the Galactic Concord, military experts watched the war with growing amazement. They had never seen anything like this. "The humans are not fighting to win battles," said Admiral Morath of the Corvani, the old warrior who had first sensed danger. "They are fighting to destroy the Vethrani will to continue. This is not war as we know it. This is something far more terrible." He showed the other experts his analysis. Human military strategy was based on something they called attrition. They did not seek glorious victories. They sought to exhaust their enemies, to bleed them slowly, to make the cost of war so high that surrender became the only option. And they had been perfecting this strategy for thousands of years. "Look at their history," Morath said. "They fought a war they called Vietnam. A small nation fought against the most powerful human country for 20 years. The small nation did not try to win battles. They simply refused to lose. Eventually, the powerful country gave up and went home. The experts were silent. The humans learned from this," Morath continued. "They learned that the side that wins is not the side with the most ships. It is the side that refuses to quit. And humans never quit." On the Vethrani flagship, Commander Thexalar stared at his reports. His scales had turned pale from stress. He had not slept in days. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked. 47, Commander," his officer replied. "And over 1,000 crew members, 47 ships. In 3 weeks, without a single real battle, just mines and drones and endless attacks. And the humans? We have confirmed the destruction of 3 drones. Nothing else." Thexalar slammed his fist on the console. 3 drones. Machines with no crew, nothing of value. "Where is their fleet?" he demanded. "Where are their real ships?" No one could answer. The human fleet had simply vanished. The Vethrani sensors could not find them. Their scouts never returned from searching. The humans were out there, watching, waiting, and every night, Another Vethrani ship died. The Vethrani soldiers began to whisper among themselves. They talked about ghosts in the darkness. They talked about enemies who could not be seen or killed. They talked about humans who felt no fear. Fear began to spread through the fleet. Soldiers who had once been proud warriors now jumped at every shadow. Officers who had once given orders with confidence now hesitated before every decision. This was exactly what the humans wanted. Admiral Chen watched the reports from her command station near Jupiter. The plan was working. The Vethrani were falling apart without a single major engagement. They still have the numbers, her aide said. 750 ships. Numbers mean nothing, Chen replied. Their crews are exhausted. Their morale is broken. Their supply lines are cut. They are a body without a brain, stumbling around in the dark. She looked at the star map. The main human fleet was hiding in the outer reaches of the Kepler system. 35 ships. Waiting for the perfect moment. And now? Her aide asked. Admiral Chen smiled. It was a cold smile. The smile of a predator who had cornered her prey. Now we let them find us. We let them think they have cornered us. We let them believe they will finally have their battle. She stood up. And then we show them what human beings do when we fight for our dead. The trap was set. The Vethrani fleet moved forward, sensors finally detecting the human ships. Commander Thexalar felt hope for the first time in weeks. There they are, he breathed. Only 35 ships. Finally, we can end this. He did not understand that the ending he would find was not the one he expected. The humans were not defending anymore. They were hunting. The Battle of Kepler's Reach began at dawn, station time. Commander Thexalar positioned his 750 warships in a perfect formation. The human fleet of 35 ships hung in space before him. They were outnumbered more than 20-1. This is it, Thexalar announced to his crew. Today we destroy these vermin once and for all. Today the galaxy will remember why the Vethrani are feared. He gave the order to attack. The first wave of Vethrani ships surged forward. Their weapons charged. Their crews cheered. Victory seemed certain. Then the human ships moved. They did not retreat. They did not try to escape. They charged directly at the Vethrani fleet. Thexalar blinked in confusion. What are they doing? The human ships hit the Vethrani formation like a hammer. They did not try to stay in neat lines. They did not try to protect each other. Each ship fought alone, diving into the middle of the enemy fleet. And they fought like nothing the Vethrani had ever seen. A human destroyer, the Vengeance, flew straight toward a Vethrani cruiser 3 times its size. The Vethrani ship fired everything it had. Missiles struck the human ship. Lasers burned holes in its hull. But the Vengeance did not stop. Its captain, a woman named Rodriguez, stood on a bridge that was on fire. Half her crew was dead. Her ship was dying around her. But she kept flying forward. For the miners, she said calmly. The Vengeance crashed into the Vethrani cruiser at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Across the battlefield, similar scenes unfolded. Human ships that should have retreated kept fighting. Human ships that should have surrendered charged into the enemy instead. Human captains made choices that no sane being would make. They traded their lives for Vethrani deaths. Captain Vorn of the Vethrani destroyer Fang of Night watched in horror as a crippled human frigate turned toward him. Its engines were gone. Its weapons were destroyed. It was drifting on emergency power, but it was still moving toward him. It is using its maneuvering thrusters, his officer gasped. They are pushing themselves at us. They are going to ram. Shoot them down, Vorn screamed. They fired everything they had. Pieces of the human ship broke away. Fires erupted across its hull, but it kept coming. The frigate struck the Fang of Night in the center. Both ships died together. The Vethrani had expected cowards. They had expected surrender. They had expected negotiations and pleas for mercy. They found none of these things. The real horror came when the boarding actions began. Some human ships were too damaged to ram. Vethrani boarding parties entered them, expecting to capture prisoners. They found something very different. On the carrier Atlas, the remaining crew had barricaded themselves in the engineering section. There were only 12 of them left. They had no weapons except tools and pipes and knives. The Vethrani sent 50 soldiers to capture them. The humans did not surrender. They fought in the corridors with hammers and wrenches. They fought in the crawlways with knives between their teeth. When they ran out of tools, they fought with their bare hands. Sergeant Yuki Tanaka had lost her left arm to a Vethrani blade. Blood poured from the wound. Any normal person would have collapsed. But she was not normal. She was human. She picked up a metal bar with her remaining hand and kept fighting. She killed 3 more Vethrani before they brought her down. The Vethrani captured the Atlas. It took them 2 hours to kill 12 humans. 30 of their soldiers died in the process. When they searched the ship, they found a message painted on the wall in blood. Remember the miners? The Vethrani soldiers stood in silence, staring at the words. Their victory felt hollow. Their scales were covered in wounds. Their hearts were filled with fear. These humans were not soldiers. They were monsters. Commander Thexalar watched the battle from his flagship. His fleet was winning. Human ships were dying. The numbers were on his side, but the numbers told a terrible story. For every human ship destroyed, 10 Vethrani ships died with it. The humans were not just fighting. They were taking as many enemies with them as possible. They were making the Vethrani pay in blood for every inch of space. And they were not surrendering. Not one human ship raised a white flag. Not one human crew asked for mercy. They fought until their ships exploded. They fought until every last member of their crew was dead. By the end of the battle, 30 of the 35 human ships were destroyed. Over 2,000 human sailors had died, but they had taken 340 Vethrani ships with them. 340. Against 30. The mathematics were impossible. The kill ratio made no sense. These were not the actions of a defeated fleet. These were the actions of a predator that did not care about its own survival. Thexalar stood on his bridge, surrounded by victory reports that felt like defeats. His officers were silent. His crew was shaken. They had won the battle, but they did not feel like winners. Commander, his communications officer said quietly, "Our soldiers are refusing to board the remaining human ships." "What? Why?" "They are afraid, sir. They say the humans fight like demons. They say it is not worth the cost." Thexalar wanted to argue, but he understood. He had watched the battle. He had seen what humans did when cornered. They did not surrender. They did not bargain. They killed everything they could reach and smiled while doing it. What kind of species was this? The answer came 3 days later. A message arrived from the Galactic Concord Observation Station. Ambassador Krixnal had been monitoring human transmissions. She had intercepted something that made her blood freeze. Earth had completed construction of 200 new warships, and 200 more were already being built, and another 300 after that. The entire human industrial base had converted to war production. Factories ran without stopping. Workers gave up their sleep, their comfort, their normal lives. Millions volunteered for military service. Millions more worked in the shipyards. Humanity was not fighting to survive. Humanity was preparing to attack. Thexalar read the intelligence report with shaking hands. The humans had lost 30 ships, but they were building hundreds more. The Vethrani had lost 340 ships, and their shipyards could barely replace them. This was not a war the Vethrani could win. The longer they fought, the stronger the humans would become. He thought about the Battle of Kepler's Reach. He thought about the human captain who had rammed his cruiser. He thought about the soldiers who had fought with their bare hands, and he understood something terrible. The Vethrani had not been fighting a war. They had been poking a nest of hornets, and now the entire swarm was coming for them. On Earth, Admiral Chen looked at the fleet roster. 2,000 ships would be ready in 6 months. 2,000 ships crewed by men and women who remembered the miners. 2,000 ships filled with hate and hunger for revenge. "Where do we hit them?" her aide asked. Admiral Chen pointed at the star map. Her finger landed on a world orbited by 3 moons. A world covered in black stone and ancient monuments. Vethra Prime. The enemy homeworld. "We go to their house," she said. "We knock on their door, and we remind them what happens when you murder our people." The wolves were coming, and they were very, very hungry. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler's Reach, the sky above Vethra Prime turned dark with human ships. High Counselor Vexthaner stood on his balcony and watched them arrive. First there were dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. 2,000 human warships filled the space around his homeworld. They blotted out the stars. They made the night sky look like a solid wall of metal and death. The Vethrani had nothing left to fight with. Their fleet was scattered. Their military leadership was dead. Their economy was in ruins. They could only watch and wait. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command," a voice said over every channel. Every screen on Vethra Prime showed the same image. A small human woman with gray hair and cold eyes. We have come for what is owed to us. Vexenor waited for the weapons to fire. He waited for the bombs to fall. He waited for the end of his species. But the weapons did not fire. We could destroy you, Admiral Chen continued. We could burn your cities. We could kill every man, woman, and child on your world. We have the power to end your species today. She paused. The silence stretched across the planet. But we are not like you. We do not kill minors. We do not murder the helpless. We came here to show you what we are capable of. And we came here to tell you what we demand. The list was simple. Return the bodies of the dead miners. Surrender Commander Thexalar and all officers involved in the attack. Pay compensation to the families of the victims, and sign a treaty promising that no Vethrani ship would ever again attack a human vessel without cause. You have 1 hour, Admiral Chen said. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what human weapons can do to a planet. If you accept, we will take our dead and go home. The transmission ended. Vex Thanor turned to his council. Their faces were pale. Their scales were trembling. For the first time in 4,000 years, the mighty Vethrani were afraid. What do we do? One of them asked. Vex Thanor closed his eyes. He thought about the war. He thought about the mines and drones. He thought about the Battle of Kepler's Reach. He thought about the human soldiers who had fought with their bare hands and written messages in their own blood. He thought about what would happen if he refused. We accept, he said quietly. Commander Thexalar was brought before the human fleet in chains. He had lost his proud stance. His scales were dull. His eyes were empty. Admiral Chen looked at him through a screen. She did not speak. She did not need to. The humans took their dead. 200 bodies, preserved in cold storage on Vethra Prime. 200 miners who had been killed for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The humans took them home. And then, as promised, the fleet left. No bombs fell. No cities burned. The Vethrani were spared, but they were not unchanged. In the days that followed, the people of Vethra Prime walked through their streets in silence. They looked up at the sky and remembered the wall of human ships. They remembered how close they had come to extinction, and they remembered that the humans had chosen mercy, not because they were weak, because they were strong enough to make that choice. Far away, in the Great Hall of the Galactic Concord, Ambassador Crixnall prepared to give the most important speech of her career. Representatives from 47 species filled the chamber. They had all watched the war. They had all seen what humans could do. Now they needed to decide what to do about these newcomers. Crixnall stood at the podium. Her silver fur was neatly groomed. Her dark eyes were calm. Honored representatives, she began. I have spent the past 6 months studying humanity. I have read their history. I have analyzed their biology. I have watched them fight a war against a superior enemy. She paused. What I have learned terrifies me. She showed them the data. The 15,000 wars. The 70 million dead in a single conflict. The nuclear weapons used on their own cities. The persistence hunting. The pack-bonding instincts. Humans are not like us, she said. When we fight, we seek to minimize casualties. When they fight, they seek to destroy their enemy completely. We believe war is a failure. They believe war is a tool. She took a breath. But that is not what frightens me most. The chamber was silent. What frightens me most is what I saw at Vethra Prime. The humans had won. They had absolute power. They could have destroyed an entire species as revenge for 200 deaths. She shook her head slowly. They chose not to. They could have been monsters. They could have proven every fear we have about them. Instead, they took their dead and went home. They showed mercy to enemies who had shown them none. She looked around the room. This is what makes humans truly dangerous. They are not mindless killers. They are not savages. They are intelligent, emotional, and moral creatures who choose when to fight and when to forgive. They can be the best allies or the worst enemies. It depends entirely on how we treat them. The chamber erupted in murmurs and whispers. Crixnall raised her hand for silence. I move that humanity be offered full membership in the Galactic Concord. Not because we want their friendship, though I think we should, but because it is far better to have the wolves inside our tent than howling at our door. The vote was unanimous. 3 months later, Ambassador James Okonkwo stood before the Concord as the first human representative. He was the brother of Major Diana Okonkwo, the woman who had led the Reapers. His eyes had the same look, the same quiet intensity. "We are honored by your invitation," he said. "Humanity wants peace. We always have. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, not enemies." He paused. "But let us be clear about what we are." The chamber was silent. "We are a Class 12 Death World species. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived by being persistent, by being clever, and by working together. We are pack-bonding omnivores who form attachments to our families, our friends, and yes, even our pets." A few representatives smiled. "We are also creatures of violence. We have fought each other for millions of years. We have developed every weapon imaginable. We have learned how to kill in ways that would give you nightmares." The smiles faded. "But we are not evil. We do not want war. We do not seek to conquer or destroy. What we want is to be left in peace, to explore the stars, to meet new species, to learn and grow and build." He looked around the room. "The Vithrani killed our miners. We did not start that war, but we finished it. We showed everyone in this galaxy what happens when you hurt our people." His voice hardened. "Let that be a lesson. Do not hurt our people. Do not threaten our families. Do not mistake our desire for peace as weakness." He took a breath. "Because if you do, you will learn the same lesson the Vethrani learned. You will learn why humans are called persistence predators. You will learn why we are the deadliest creatures this galaxy has ever known." He smiled. It was a warm smile, a friendly smile. "But that will not happen, because we are going to be friends. All of us. We are going to trade and learn and grow together. We are going to build something beautiful among these stars." The smile remained, but his eyes were hard. "Just remember, let sleeping dogs lie." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Ambassador Crixnall began to applaud. Others joined her. Within seconds, the entire galactic concord was on its feet, clapping for the new members of their alliance. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. Years later, a young Vithrani student asked his teacher about the war. He had heard stories, but he wanted to understand. "Why did we attack them?" he asked. "Why did we start a war we could not win?" The old teacher looked out the window at the peaceful sky. "Because we were arrogant," he said. "We saw a young species with small numbers and primitive technology. We thought they were weak. We thought they would be easy to crush." He turned to his student. "We were fools. We looked at the humans and saw prey. We should have looked closer. We should have seen the wolves hiding behind their friendly smiles." The student nodded slowly. "Will they ever attack us again?" The teacher shook his head. "No. We gave them their dead. We paid our debts. We learned our lesson." He paused. "And the humans, for all their violence, are not without honor. They forgave us. They gave us a second chance." He looked back at the sky. "We will never forget what they taught us. We will never forget what happens when you hurt a human. And we will never, ever make that mistake again." The student left. The teacher stayed by the window, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, among those points of light, the humans were building, exploring, dreaming. They were no longer just newcomers. They were the wolves of the galaxy, and everyone knew better than to wake them.